What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'll talk about how the technicals are looking so far and some very important things about tomorrow, as we have some more data coming out that's going to be very important. But before I break anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends in just about 4 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the overall market. So looking at SPY, this thing had a very, very crazy day. We basically started off very weak, and I released videos in the morning telling you that the market was likely going to see some downside. I was recording the videos around the time when SPY was right here in this like 425 area. And I told you all that there could be more downside coming, so I wanted to warn you all about that. And the level I was talking about was around 422.5 because that happened to be very close to where our daily 200 EMA happened to be. And I told you to watch this. This is where we could see SPY headed towards. And this is very close to where we went. But then later on during the day, and this was actually like many hours after I released my second video, SPY ended up getting a very nice bounce off this 422 area, and it actually started pushing very nicely. So the question is SPY about to see signals of a change in market structure? Are we about to start making higher highs and higher lows, or are we about to see the market decline more? And this is going to be very dependent on the data coming out for tomorrow. From a technical standpoint, we have a bullish divergence that developed on SPY, and there are some signals suggesting the market may start to uptrend a little bit, but there are no guarantees because we need to break particular levels of resistance. We need to watch for confirmation, and we have to see what the data is going to suggest. So what data am I talking about? Tomorrow, 1 hour before the market opens, we have the GDP numbers coming out, the GDP growth rate coming out. This is for quarter over quarter. We're expecting it to be around 2.1%. This is going to be very telling for the market for Q2. Then we have the GDP price index coming out quarter over quarter. We're expecting this to be around 2%. That's the increase we're talking about. We want it to be very close to the expectation. If this is too hot, it's not going to be the best of signs. If it's way too low, same thing. We want this to be very close to expectations, which I believe it most likely will be. Then we have initial jobless claims. We want this to be between 205 to 215,000, somewhere in that range. That's going to be close to expectations. That's what we want. We do not want this to be way too low. If it's too low, it's going to be a bad sign. And besides that, we have more PCE expectations coming out, some housing data, which is quite minor. We have some Fed speakers also. They're going to be talking before Jerome Powell speaks. And Powell is going to be speaking once again a little bit after, or like right when the market closes. He's going to start talking, so during the after hours. So he's not going to be speaking during the open market hours, just during the after hours. So that's going to be very, very important. And then what he says could affect how the market opens for Friday. And also, don't forget that we have PCE coming out for Friday. So this is going to be very important. For now, we're just going to be watching this data. The biggest thing right now are going to be the GDP numbers and the initial jobless claims 1 hour before the market opens. So make sure you're prepared for this. This is going to cause the market to make a big move. Either we gap up or gap down, and we'll have to wait and see. Now, one thing that's very important, though, is the market is in extreme fear mode. When the market hits these extreme levels, we tend to see the market get ready to bounce, but not always will it be guaranteed. We could always drop a little bit more before any bounce tends to come. But when the market is closer to bottoms, that's when we tend to be in these extreme levels. We just barely reached extreme fear for the market for the time being. Looking at some more data, the market momentum is still fearful. The overall data is still showing extreme fear, and even the put and call option positioning. And then looking at the overall market volatility, it's still more on the fear side as the VIX is holding up, but the VIX starts to decline, and that could be a big sign of a reversal. I will talk more about that in just a couple of minutes. The Dow closed lower on Wednesday, but stocks have made an attempt to come back. We actually saw SPY close green, so there is some potential for the market to try to bounce, but no guarantees just yet as these yields are still upticking, so we just want to be open-minded. So let's talk about the chart. How are things looking? We have a bullish divergence on the 30 minutes time frame. We got this bounce already. So the question is this all there is to it, or is there going to be a bigger move? Whether or not the market bounces is going to depend on the GDP numbers coming out an hour before the market opens and initial jobless claims. If we get a bullish outcome, okay, SPY is going to try to break 428. If we break 428, I could see this thing pushing towards this attempt to fill this gap up here by Friday, there's a possibility of that. If we get a bearish outcome, we could see this start, gapping down and retesting 424 and continuing to sink to 420. Now, what is more likely to play out? In my opinion, looking at the 4-hour chart, we also have a double bullish divergence, and we have a bullish divergence on the MACD, and we got a very nice balance today, which could be a sign of a change in market structure. Now, what could be happening is the market may be getting ready to have bottomed at 422 just temporarily, and the market could start reversing very soon. There's a real possibility of that, but no guarantees until we break 428. We hold above that. That's when we could start to see more signs of strength. So I want to see if we could break 428. If we manage to do so, I think we're going to be hitting the 430s very soon again. Let's see if that ends up being the case. Let's see what the numbers cost for tomorrow. I am leaning a little bit more bullish, but I can't promise anything because it depends on the data. So we'll have to wait and see on that. For Tesla, I was warning everyone there's likely going to be a drop coming. I said this when Tesla was around 240. This thing was at 246 in the morning, came down to 240. And then what happened? It went all the way down to 234. We had a big drop for a couple of hours, just as we had predicted. Then, this was many hours after my video was done with, the market started bouncing. I wasn't available to give you guys another update on this part, but the market turned bullish and we saw a nice bounce, and Tesla made its way back up to 242. Now, Tesla still closed red. It's not basically in a good place just yet. But when we look at the 4-hour chart, one thing that's good is that we formed a bullish divergence, and this could be a sign of Tesla trying to reverse. Now, for me to turn bullish, I want to see it hold up to 20 EMA above 246. If we break that, 252 is a possibility. If we're bearish, we want to see Tesla break below 240 and fail to hold it again, and that's when it can start declining again towards the 230s. 238 and 235 are two very important supports, so watch that very, very carefully. Right now, my gut tells me, okay, I can't promise anything, but I'm leaning a tiny bit more bullish for tomorrow because of this bullish divergence and because we got a very nice bounce as the market was very, very oversold. I'm leaning a little bit more in that direction, but I can't promise anything or say anything with high conviction because it depends on the data. It depends on the numbers coming out for tomorrow. So watch those very carefully 1 hour before the market opens. For Aapl, when we zoom out of the chart, we have a clear bullish divergence right here. Looking at the RSI from here and also looking at the MACD, there's a bullish divergence that is established on this chart, and Apple's trying to bounce off 169. We have some decent support there, and we managed to close above 170, which is a good sign, but nothing is guaranteed just yet. If we're bearish on Aapl, you want to see it break below 169, start dropping towards 165, which is where we have a gap. It may hit 168 first before that, of course, but then at the same time, if you want to be bullish, you want to see Aapl break above 170.78. If it does so, I could see 172. Now, what do I think is more likely? With the bullish divergence and Aapl trying to hold up, there could be a change in market structure. We could see this thing approach 172 just temporarily, and there's a possibility of a bounce coming, but it's going to depend mostly on the numbers. So I'm leaning a little bit more bullish, looking at the structure, but no guarantees. Can't promise anything until we see the numbers for the GDP and the initial jobless claims. The QQQ is looking quite promising because we have a nice bullish divergence that was established on the 30 minutes time frame. On the 4-hour chart, there's a double bullish divergence the last time I checked it. And this has potential to bounce from here. I think there's definitely potential, but no guarantees until we truly see the numbers that come out. If we're bearish, you want to see this thing break below 353.5. If that's the case, tomorrow, we could be sinking towards 351 or below that. If we break and hold above 357, however, we have the potential to fill this gap and start pushing towards 360. Which direction am I leaning in? I think that we were very oversold after dropping so hard. I'm starting to think that this could be the time for a bounce tomorrow. I'm leaning a little bit more in that direction, but just to be safe, I'm going to be open-minded. I'm just going to wait and see how this ends up moving. For Nvidia, we had a nice, crazy day. This thing came down pretty hard, bounced, came down, and came right back up at the very end. We're starting to establish a higher low, though we're still actually on a slight uptrend on Nvidia. And instead of actually dropping a little bit lower, because I was thinking it might drop a little bit lower than this, it actually held up a little bit better. And now this thing's starting to show some life as we saw some buyers step in. And Nvidia managed to close kind of green, which was pretty decent. So had Nvidia broken below this 415 support, we could have seen this thing fill the gap, but ended up doing a lot better. So now we're going to be watching 430 as resistance. If we break this, we could see this thing start pushing towards 433, and above that, 439 is a possibility. We have a nice looking accumulation structure, Nvidia is slowly uptrending, and I could see it get very close to the 430s. But first, we have to see the data just to be safe. Technicals alone are not everything. And 420 is still a key support. We have to hold above that. So watch that as support and watch resistance around right where we are, very close to 425. If we break that, then we could see 428, then potentially even 430 plus. I'm leaning a bit more in that direction, but once again, we'll have to see the data first just for us to be safe. For Microsoft stock, this is looking like it could be bouncing as we have a bullish divergence. If we're bearish, watch 312. If that breaks, it's going to start sinking. If we're bullish, you want to see it get above 315. It could be testing that very soon. I am leaning a bit more bullish, but it depends on the data, so don't forget about that. AMD is the same thing. It all depends on the data. If you're bullish, you want to see it break 99.5. If you're bearish, you want to see it break below 97. Now, in my opinion, it's looking a little bit more bullish with this accumulation, a nice double bottom that formed on it. I could see this thing pushing for 99.5, but just to be safe, we'll see what happens with GDP numbers. The VIX closed red for the first time in quite some time. And the VIX has this very interesting trend that developed on it. Let me just double check on the RSI here. So there's nothing going on the 4-hour time frame, but on the 30 minutes time frame, something interesting has developed. We formed a bearish divergence and this thing came down and we're just barely seeing support right here. So if the VIX is bullish, you want to see it break 18.6. If that's the case, then this could be because the market's selling off. But the VIX is looking more bearish on the 30 minutes time frame, and we could be testing the 50 EMA. If we break below this 18 level, we're going to be watching this gap down here around 16.8. This could get filled thanks to the bearish divergence and the loss of momentum. If that gets filled, if we fill the gap below, this could lead to, or this could be because of the market potentially seeing a bounce. So the VIX suggests that a bounce is more probable, but no guarantees until we see the data. It just seems a little bit more likely just by looking at this trend. Now the dollar pumped, it came down and established a lower high. This could be a sign of this thing starting to decline a little bit, a change in the overall trend. If that's what's happening for the dollar, that would be bullish for the markets, suggesting that a bounce is a possibility for us. For Coinbase, if you're bullish, you want to see this thing break above 72 flat. If we manage to break and hold 72, I could see this thing pushing for 73.69. If we're bearish, you want to see it come all the way down to 170 again. If that breaks, you're going to be watching it hit potentially like 69.7 and potentially 68 below that. Right now, it's looking very flat, kind of like sideways, not really doing a whole lot. So I'm going to be watching to see how it reacts to 72. My guts tells me it might try to break that anyways, but it all depends on the data. For Google got a really nice bounce today. It's trying to push up. We're going to be watching to see if it could break 132.5. If it does so, 133 is on the table, not to mention this next resistance right here towards 133.8. So there's some potential for Google to bounce, but we want to get above this 200 EMA after we test it. If it breaks this 200, that's going to be a bullish signal. 132.5 is going to be a key level. Let's see if that breaks or not. If we're bearish, you want to see it break below 130.8. That's going to be very telling for tomorrow. My guts tells me it's going to be upside, but just to be safe, we'll have to wait and see what happens with all the data. Amazon closed flat, but we have a potential inverse head and shoulders that could be forming. If this thing comes down during the pre-market, we're going to be watching for a bounce. And if Amazon gets above 126.5, I could see it pushing towards this top right here at 128.28. So I'm leaning a bit more bullish, looking at this accumulation that is developing with this bullish divergence. That tells me Amazon may bounce tomorrow, but just to be safe, let's see what the data tells us. Let's see what happens during the pre-market. Let's see if the market truly bounces. We want to see Amazon get above 126.5 and hold above it. Don't just like touch it and come down. Hold above that level, and that's going to be a very big indicator. For Meta, if you are bullish, you want to see this thing break above 300, basically very close to 300. Then at 305 becomes a possibility. As of right now, it's very flat. It came down but managed to get a bounce. Could be on its way to 301 at the very least. I think it's going to be very flat tomorrow, but there is some potential for green. It will depend on the market, so we'll just wait and see. So anyways, guys, I think there's a bounce potential for the markets. It's a possibility. Okay, we have lots of data coming out tomorrow, which is going to affect how the market moves. But I believe that there's a real possibility of us getting a bounce, but no guarantees until we see the data. And I just want to let you know that from a technical analysis perspective, the market, it could still make an attempt to bounce after looking very bearish. This bounce does not have to be a permanent thing, just temporarily. This could be another, bull trap. Anything like that is completely fine. You guys could believe it. But just to be clear, the market has potential to try to uptrend a little bit. This data coming out an hour before the market open before the market opens, is going to be a very important factor, and we will see what happens tomorrow morning. So until I see you guys, thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day, remain calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you, and peace out.